You've probably heard of Cain and Abel, the first two sons of Adam and Eve, but what about their third son, Seth? His story is often overlooked, but it's absolutely crucial to the entire biblical narrative. In fact, if it weren't for Seth, the story of humanity might have ended in tragedy right at the very beginning. So who was this pivotal figure, and why is his legacy so important? Let's uncover the forgotten story of Seth, the son who carried the hope of humanity on his shoulders. To understand Seth's significance, we have to go back to the world's first family tragedy. Genesis chapter 4 tells the heartbreaking story of Cain and Abel. Both brothers brought offerings to God. Abel, a shepherd, offered the firstborn of his flock, while Cain, a farmer, offered some of the fruits of the soil. God looked with favor on Abel's offering, but not on Cain's. The Bible doesn't explicitly state why, but many theologians believe it was an issue of faith and the heart's attitude. Abel gave his best, a blood sacrifice, which foreshadowed the ultimate sacrifice to come, while Cain's offering may have been given grudgingly or without the right reverence. Consumed by jealousy and anger, Cain lured his brother Abel into a field and murdered him. This was the first death, the first act of violence between humans. When God confronted Cain, he famously replied, "Am I my brother's keeper?" For his crime, Cain was cursed, forced to become a restless wanderer on the earth, bearing a mark so that no one would kill him. This left Adam and Eve heartbroken and childless. Abel was gone, and Cain was exiled, his lineage marked by violence from its inception. It seemed as though the promise of a blessed lineage for humanity was lost forever. Imagine the despair of Adam and Eve. They had been expelled from Eden, and now their family was shattered by sin and death. Was this the end? But God, in His grace, had another plan. Genesis 4, verse 25. Gives us this beautiful and hopeful statement. Adam made love to his wife again, and she gave birth to a son and named him Seth, saying, "God has granted me another child in place of Abel, since Cain killed him." The name Seth itself means appointed or substitute. Eve saw him as a direct gift from God, a replacement for the righteous son she had lost. Seth wasn't just another child. He was a symbol of new beginnings, a sign that God's plan for humanity would not be thwarted by human sin. He was the appointed one to continue the godly line. From this point, the Bible presents two distinct family lines descending from Adam. First, there's the line of Cain. Genesis describes his descendants as builders of cities and pioneers in various crafts like metalworking and music. Names like Lamech, who boasts of his own violent deeds, characterize this lineage. It's often interpreted as a line that, while culturally advanced, grew increasingly distant from God, marked by pride, violence, and self-reliance. They built a world for themselves, but it was a world without God at its center. Then there's the line of Seth. The narrative takes a completely different tone. Genesis 4 verse 26 gives us a profound insight into this lineage. It says, "Seth also had a son, and he named him Enosh." At that time, people began to call on the name of the Lord. This is a monumental moment. While Cain's descendants were building earthly cities, Seth's descendants were building a spiritual relationship with their Creator. They began the practice of public worship, of calling upon God's name, seeking His guidance, and acknowledging His sovereignty. This was the start of the godly seed, the lineage through which God's covenant promises would be fulfilled. The contrast between the two lines is stark. One represents humanity's attempt to build a civilization apart from God, leading to corruption and violence. The other represents humanity's choice to walk with God, fostering a legacy of faith and righteousness. Seth was the father of this godly line. His birth wasn't just a comfort to his parents. It was the hinge upon which the future of redemption turned. As we trace the genealogy in Genesis chapter 5, we follow the line of Seth, not Cain. This chapter is often called the generations of Adam, but it specifically follows Seth's descendants. It lists names that become central to the biblical story. We read about Enosh, Kenan, Mahalalel, and Jared. We encounter Enoch, who walked faithfully with God. Then he was no more, because God took him away. Enoch's story is a powerful testament to the intimate relationship with God that characterized this family line. It shows that walking with God was the highest value, even more so than a long life on earth. Then comes Methuselah, famous for being the oldest person in the Bible, living 969 years. And his son, Lamech, not to be confused with Cain's descendant of the same name. This Lamech looked at his own son and spoke words of hope. When his son was born, he said, He will comfort us in the labor and painful toil of our hands caused by the ground the Lord has cursed. And who was this son? His name was Noah. That's right. Noah, the man who God chose to save from the great flood, was a direct descendant of Seth. When the world had become so corrupt, largely influenced by the ungodly ways spreading from the line of Cain, God found one righteous man, Noah, from the line of Seth. Through Noah and his family, humanity was preserved and the godly line continued. Without Seth, there would have been no Noah. Without Noah, there would have been no one to build the ark. Seth was the crucial link that carried the seed of hope through the generations leading up to the flood. But the story doesn't end with Noah. The lineage of Seth continues to be the central thread of the entire Old Testament. After the flood, Noah's son Shem carries the blessing. Tracing the line from Shem, we eventually arrive at a man named Abram, later called Abraham, the father of the Israelite nation. Through Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the covenant promise is passed down. This line leads directly to King David, the greatest king of Israel, to whom God promised an eternal throne. And finally, this very same lineage, which began with Adam and was preserved through Seth, culminates in the birth of Jesus Christ. The Gospels of Matthew and Luke both provide genealogies for Jesus. Luke's genealogy, in particular, traces Jesus' ancestry all the way back, through David, through Abraham, through Noah, all the way back to Seth, and finally to Adam, the Son of God. So, you see, Seth is far from being a minor character. He is the ancestor of Noah, Abraham, David, and ultimately, Jesus. He represents the faithful remnant, the line of promise that God preserved even in the face of humanity's earliest and most devastating failures. While the story of Cain is a cautionary tale about jealousy, sin, and its consequences, the story of Seth is a powerful message of hope, redemption, and God's unwavering faithfulness to his plan. He is the appointed one who ensured that the story didn't end with a murderer and a victim. He was the new beginning, the quiet and steady foundation upon which the entire story of salvation would be built. Next time you read the early chapters of Genesis, don't just skip over those long lists of names. Remember the story they tell. It's the story of two paths, the way of Cain, which leads to ruin, and the way of Seth, which leads to relationship with God and the fulfillment of his promises. Seth's legacy reminds us that even in our darkest moments, after our most painful losses, God can appoint a new beginning and bring forth hope where it seems all is lost. He is the quiet hero of Genesis, the son whose legacy truly changed the world. Thanks so much for watching. If you found this story as fascinating as I do, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the hidden stories of the Bible. Let me know in the comments what other biblical figures you'd like to learn more about. See you in the next video.